Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Big cheating discussions going down last night, with Havoc revealing that he was one of the chief culprits behind the sound equalization abuse way back in Cold War that only recently we've realised that players were using back then to gain a competitive advantage, but also Octane revealing that as far as he was concerned, Scrappy, when he first came onto the scene in challenges in Vanguard, might as well have been cheating based on how good he was that season. Question though on how good he's going to be going forwards after a rather lackluster start to this season, all things considered. Very much intriguing your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Firstly, I guess I wanted to go through here just all of the team camos we saw yesterday. To be fair, people have different opinions on, sure, maybe the camo for this certain team is very nice. I quite like the Boston one here, for example, but maybe, like the Ravens, I don't like their camo so much, but I think their like outfit, their team skin is pretty good, or like the character thing that they've got going on. These are the various ones throughout the teams. I know people always look hard on OpTic's one because, to be fair, I actually think Heretics is kind of clean. People always kind of roast OpTic just because they always talk a good game about how good they're going to be. This one, though, I actually think is fire. Like, I actually really do like this OpTic one, to be fair, this year. I'm pretty sure Pred and Kenny do as well. Surges is actually sick as well. There's some good ones this year, I'm not going to lie. Sure, I gassed up the Black Ops 3 ones the other day, but I do think the teams have done a good job of these. Look at Toronto's one as well. So, good looks, I suppose, but obviously they're not cheap not as cheap, I suppose, as they used to be a few years ago, but inflation and all this type of stuff. This is another big deal, though, in the gaming world yesterday, or potentially coming today. There are rumours going around that Twitch is going to lay off basically a third of its staff, and that 500 employees are going to get made redundant and laid off. So this is, well, a big deal, of course, for the industry at large. It's difficult to say whether any company has really got it right in terms of, you know, the live stream landscape. It's no secret that Twitch has been hemorrhaging money for years. It's not a cheap thing to host, you know, hundreds of thousands of hours of live video like every hour. I don't know, because loads of people are streaming on there. And, you know, it's difficult. They've made it work by increasing, like, ad rates. If you guys ever go on Twitch, you'll know that there's ads all over the place nowadays. And they get paid somehow from the advertisement, maybe through Amazon or something, insanely high CPMs. So the basically cost per mil, cost per thousands. The numbers on Twitch in terms of the amount of money you make per 1,000 people that watch the adverts is, like, really high compared to YouTube, which I don't know if that can necessarily last forever. But even managing that, they're still, like, hemorrhaging money like no tomorrow. And of course, Amazon own Twitch, and they're looking at Twitch saying, look guys, we can't just fund you into the ground for no reason. Like, you've got to, you know, got to make a profit at some point, and it's not really happened. So puts Twitch in an interesting spot. What this means for competitive COD, I don't really know, but you know, the fact of the matter is that the only options really right now are Twitch and YouTube. Now Kick.com is a thing, but Kick actually uses the same Twitch backends. They just buy from Amazon for 10 times more than Twitch pay, because Twitch are owned by Amazon, so they get it for the base rate, obviously, and Kick have to pay whatever markup to use that same back end. But definitely an interesting time for Twitch, because of course such a, well, a backbone really of the esports landscape, that Twitch is, well, moving very quickly into try and streamline as much as they possibly can to actually stay alive, because otherwise Jeff Bezos or whoever's in charge now at Amazon is going to say, all right guys, we've had enough of this, and you know, let's just stop losing money, and like YouTube can take the industry, whatever, which would be, well, a big deal, especially because YouTube live streaming is not exactly great, I think, as we all know, at least in terms of discovery. The actual quality of the product is fantastic. You know, you can rewind, you can pause. I love watching on YouTube, but it's not quite the same. The community isn't quite the same as you get in the Twitch chats and stuff like this. And it's not as often you'll stumble across a new stream, especially like a new big stream on YouTube, than you will on Twitch, maybe because you're, you know, you're competing with VOD products as well. So definitely a big story there in the industry. There was also this from Clay I thought was funny. So yesterday we talked about the Ravens potential roster change coming soon. There were rumors that they've been looking for alternatives to Real, potentially as quickly as this weekend. If Real can't get back in time with the visa stuff over to the US, then it's quite probable they'll need to have a substitute for this weekend's games. So, you know, who's that going to be? That's a question. But this is a pretty funny comment here on the Reddit that goes on to say, you know, Carolina should really just do a fan giveaway for the weekend and let one lucky winner have a chance to play for the team. You build up some hype and the fan base of your team, while also providing the same in-game results, which I thought was pretty fantastic, right? Because they have kind of been getting slammed. In most of the series they played so far, only Vegas was the one they won. They haven't won a map outside of that Carolina. 3-0'd by Heretics, 3-0'd by Scrappy's Toronto, we'll go on to talk about him in a second, and then 3-0'd by OpTic in an absolute, you know, that was a slammage. And, well, some of those records that were set in that series might well last for quite some time to come. Also, a couple of interesting comparisons I thought. We saw one the other day between Dashy and Cellium, was it? This time they're again going down the OpTic versus FaZe route, and understandably so. Between Pred and Simp, it's, well, they've had great seasons so far. Pred, especially in the final 3 series they played, has been a monster. Simp has just been on fire, though, overall. Just hardpoint KDs, kills per 10. Interesting to see the relative pace differences, but then again, Pred and OpTic, they play a lot of Skid Row, so, you know, it depends, right? Different maps, you're going to have more and less kills per 10 and stuff like this, and obviously Pred is not getting any hill time, he just runs around and gets kills, whereas Simp is in a different boat. But right now, these guys have both been on top form. Simp is looking like potential MVP candidate again this season. If he's not in the conversation by the end of the year, I don't know what's happened, because he definitely will be. And of course, I guess they're building up as well the CDL with graphics like this to the OpTic versus FaZe matchup, which is going to be the most, well, anticipated game of the online qualifiers so far. It's the final game played before the major, just a couple of weeks' time. Final game on the Sunday, OpTic versus FaZe, and quite feasibly, we will go into that series looking at, okay, whoever wins the series could well be the favourites for the major, but of course, online stuff is always a little bit different to what happens when teams actually get to LAN. Now, a few cheating things going around. Firstly, on sound equalization. Now, it's still a problem today, but everybody knows about it now. And while it was last year that people realised it was a problem in the pro scene, really, it was actually way before that certain players discovered it. It's like a Windows setting, loudness equalization. People call it sound EQ, whatever. But it's been rumoured now for some time, roughly, you know, mid last year, where players were starting to talk about people actually using it way back in Cold War. So, you know, things moved to PC, and then apparently in Cold War, because sure, dead silence exists in that game, but it was still, you should still make some noise. The theory was that players had been abusing it at the time. There was even talk from Ghosty about this, and even Dashy implied that, you know, certain teams had crazy good awareness back in that game. And there's been talk about Awakening, obviously, back in M2019, as to whether, you know, because as soon as Awakening came into the league, all the talk was, wow, this guy's awareness is absolutely absurdly good. And, you know, obviously, for the last couple of years, Sound EQ's been a thing. This year, Sound EQ, it's GA'd by the pros, and it's not going to be allowed on LAN or anything. And, you know, Awakening hasn't had the greatest start to the season, so there's going to be talk about that. And also, Dashy was implying potentially that Toronto back in Cold War were also using the Sound EQ to their advantage. So Havoc actually commented on this, I thought was pretty interesting, saying that back in Cold War himself, he actually had the Sound EQ on back then. So it's kind of fascinating that loads of pros discovered this, and I'm sure that other people figured it out as well at the time, but it wasn't talked about for a good, like, 2 years, despite the fact that many players in the league were using this to, you know, to gain a competitive advantage, cheating in some respects, although, you know, it wasn't necessarily considered cheating at the time because there wasn't really a rule against it, but they were using something they knew garnered a competitive advantage for them without actually, you know, letting anybody else know. Maybe they let their teammates know, I don't know. But yeah, Havoc was definitely a player back in the Cold War days for the Florida team, and he was in and out over the last couple of seasons before now he's going to step to do content stuff, but that was pretty spicy. And I'll also share Octane's thoughts on Scrappy when he first came on the scene back in Vanguard.
First season.
Bro, I think I was the only one in Vanguard with loudness EQ on, bro. Like, you gotta give me a break.
Oh my god, you're running EQ too.
I've been running EQ since Cold War. Alright, I'll come clean.
Wow.
I was ass at Cold War too. I needed that.
That's insane. You're just blatantly cheating for years.
I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was cheating.
Alright, Colt, listen, bro. I'm back on
It
Elo.
was just good audio settings.
I'm back on Elo.
You're so weird. You're so weird for that. What do you mean you're back on Elo?
Well,
Even if
me
you
is
weren't a
different.
pro. Even if you weren't a pro.
Oh, dude, Vanguard.
Oh, okay.
I was fucking ripping. Holy shit.
I was convinced
so
you were cheating in
doped up.
Vanguard.
I was so doped
I was
up.
actually convinced you were cheating in
Yo,
Vanguard.
Tyler
Yeah,
fell
and then-
4-4 in
Dude,
the
I'm sorry.
And then you got
Vanguard-
costed. You got costed
Vanguard-
champs by your team. It's all
Vanguard
good.
was so fun.
That game was
Yeah.
fun.
And then you got
It was
costed.
literally jetpack boots.
Jetpack boots.
Bro, Berlin, what a map.
What a map. What a
What a
map.
fucking
Thank
map.
you, Ernie. What a map, bro.
Really,
Gab,
definitely
what
one
a
of
map.
What a map.
that. What a
Dude,
match.
Gab, holy what? Bro, you see me on top boat?
What a map.
We know Sam's favorite map is Tuscan Surge, so.
Oh, is that supposed to?
I don't even know what Ben means by that.
I don't even know.
I don't even know what Ben could possibly be inferring with that.
Conferring with that.
So this was what was looking like the Florida team at the time when they had Awakening, right? So again, it makes you wonder, really, who exactly put Havoc onto this. Did Havoc first discover the sound EQ, or was there somebody else on that Florida team that discovered the sound EQ? I don't know. To your thoughts on that in the comments. But we had Awakening sacked, and then, you know, Havoc was gone and Neptune was in. You guys remember when they made that change? And then Havoc was back in 2023, and then he's gone again, and we know how it's gone since then. But I thought the points on Scrappy were kind of interesting, right? Because we see this relatively often when a new player comes along, they, you know, absolutely frying, and pros or just top players in general think there must be cheating or something dodgy is going on. And you can totally understand why there's thoughts about this, especially when lots of players are being found to be cheating, right? I mean, it's not exactly like all the pros are paranoid that, oh, this guy looks dodgy, is he cheating? Turns out we've had guys like Jimbo and these players over the last couple of years that actually have been, and it's frustrating, but it is what it is. But it often happens in all sorts of different esports. New rookie talent comes on the scene and players think, wow, this guy is too good to be true, gotta be dodgy. But also there's a general feeling that Scrappy in Vanguard might have been his best year, and honestly, this year so far, based on the numbers, he hasn't been looking quite as good. So back in Vanguard, he was playing on the Toronto Ultra Academy in the North American side. He actually very briefly played with Doug, but also mainly against Doug. But yeah, back then, Scrappy was in challenges, but he was absolutely farming in challenges, right? I mean, this guy had some of the insanest stats really of the entire season, and it was a no-brainer really for Toronto to pick him up for next season. Even Doug says that the best player that he's ever played against is Vanguard Scrappy, which is pretty concerning for the opposition, of course, at the time. And let's not forget that very briefly during Call of Duty Vanguard, they actually teamed together. This was, I think as Ant says here, this team lasted about 2 days, but it's pretty wild, right? Doug, Johnny, Silly, and Scrappy. Of course, Silly were 2018 Call of Duty World Champion on Evil Geniuses team, so absolutely wild team. But yeah, this team didn't not last particularly long. Doug's already, you know, getting some hill time in here, so, you know, fair play from him. But Scrappy did also step up and compete in the Pro League that season very briefly. To be fair, there was also the Pro-Am Classic that year, so he did also play in that, but I believe there was one specific game, I'm guessing it was this one against the Gorillas, that Scrappy was brought up into. I don't know if it was Cammy that was unwell or something like that, and Scrappy had to like step in for the starting team. I think that happened twice for Toronto that year, because one of the times they played a series with Hixie, it might have been against Florida, but Toronto like 3-0'd the team that they were playing in like the closest 3 ever. It was like 250, 249, 6-5, and then 3-2 in the control. I'm pretty sure it was like a wild one. I think one of them was a Bacage or something, so I think it was that series, but it was also one that Scrappy played. I'm pretty sure they played like a Tuscan in this. I seem to remember a little bit of that. But anyway, Scrappy fried, and whatever series it was, he fried. I think it was this one against Gorillas. Had a 1.36. This should be 116 overall series kills as well. So at the time, there were quite a few kind of rookie players that were doing well, but Scrappy just stepped in for that one particular series before he was then back out of the team again. But he made a statement in that series, and after doing very well in challenges and then to the end of the year, it was kind of a no-brainer that they were going to pick him up for the next season. You know, he was even talking all sorts of trash here as well, right? This was that Toronto Ultra NA Academy team, and, you know, Scrappy, Hixie, these guys, they actually beat Paris Legion at the Pro-Am Classic. They took him down. I think it was the early series that they won. His Vikul before the hair transplants. And this was his season during Vanguard challenges mainly, right? So they seem to believe he was incredible. Of course, Octane saw him play. Don't know if Octane necessarily played against him too much in actual proper matches, because I don't believe they ever matched up at the Pro-Am Classic at the time, but I'm sure that he ran into him in wages or 8s or whatever the case might be. I was kind of thinking, okay, this guy's unbelievably good to be sending in challenges. And then, of course, he comes into the Pro League and has a great season last year, you know, potential almost borderline MVP candidate, but of course, Rookie of the Year as well. This year, though, it's going to be interesting to see, because Toronto on paper, they got better with Envoy coming in for Hixie, but so far, they're 2-1. They got slammed 3-0 by Boston the other day, and Scrappy's numbers aren't exactly spectacular so far. He has like a 1.1. His Search and Destroy KD is like a 0.6 or something like that. Insight's been doing well so far, but there's been maybe a feeling going around, people watching Scrappy stream, that maybe he's not quite as good at this game as he was last year, maybe not quite as good as he was, let's say, back in Vanguard. So, like, is it going to be interesting to see? Is Scrappy washed? Like, no, there's no way, right? But I thought it was an interesting storyline that Octane was thinking this guy was cheating, and whether that's going to translate at all into the success that Toronto might potentially have this season. So very much into your thoughts in the comments below. This is quite a funny one as well here from Dashy. I don't know if you guys thought that the camera might have been not synced up here, because just another Vanguard clip, I thought that I mentioned it because it's relevant to what we're talking about today. But yeah, so Dashy, as he calls in this guide, you can see he puts his hand up to his forehead here. So I don't know whether his, you know, is it possible that he was actually calling in the glide one-handed on his controller, or was the camera just not synced up? Not sure what you think is more likely, but hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.